Hello. It's very nice of you to come today. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm particularly excited about this new project that we're doing. We're going to do some Millefiori complex caning, and if you're a caner or a clayer, I'm sure you're interested in making complex canes, but they have a mystique to them that they really don't need to have. That's why we're going to demystify, we're going to break it down. You're going to see exactly how to do it in a way that I know you can do it. And I want to remind you that when you make it yourself, you can use any colors you want to. Today I'm going to make it with black, white, and gold because that really shows the contrast of what we're doing. But when you see how easy it is and you see how it goes together, you're going to want to select colors that you like. So be thinking about that during the project. We're going to cover the method of how to build the simple canes that create the complex cane. And once you can do that, it really opens up your caning in a way that maybe you hadn't had the opportunity to do before. So thanks again for coming. I'm super excited to present this to you. And there's one more thing I want to bring up. I'm going to have an article come out in Polymer Cafe magazine. That's January 2014, the January-February issue. And that article is something that I've really been wanting to show you. It's a technique that I've really been working hard on. And you don't need to know exactly what it is right now because I'll ruin the surprise. But I hope you'll pick it up or go see it at the bookstore and see if you're interested in the technique I'll be teaching starting next year. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start out with a couple of slabs. There's all kinds of different sizes you may or may not be working with. I've got these because they're handleable and easy to show. You can obviously make a lot more or a lot less material if you want to. So we'll start with the Skinner blend. I will not torture you with watching me make a Skinner blend because there's almost nothing more boring in the universe than watching somebody crank a handle 25 times. But it takes about between 15 and 25 times to get a good blend, and that's good information to have. Your Skinner blend is made in this manner. I bet you've seen it a million billion times. But there's something people might not have remembered to tell you. And that is, if you want the blend to be all the way blended, so you're going to start with a light gray and go to a dark gray, then you're going to want to match these corners up perfectly. If you don't want to blend it all the way out, which I don't want to, I want some white in here and I want some black in here. So I don't want my blends all the way blended. And so because of that, I'm going to offset it. And that's kind of a weird concept. It's kind of abstract and it's best to be seen than to be told. So that's why I'm showing that to you. So in the case of a Skinner blend cane, and you want to keep your white, you want to keep your black, that's the way that you do that. Okay? So now you're going to be putting it through your machine, as I say, 15 to 20, 25 times, depending. Each time you pass it through, you're going to see a little bit more of what you want, and when it's the way you want to, obviously you stop. And what I do is I fold them this way. I've had all kinds of weird suggestions on how to fold these and how important it is and all. But actually, put this through one time on a number 1 setting. This is a double thickness, so that's going to flatten it for you. And then when you bend it up in a U shape, just keep going the same way you're going. The only trick to Skinner blend making is to not spaz out and turn it over, which, you know, of course I've done it. But you don't want to do that. So you're going to put it through one time in a number 1 setting, and you can end up with a nice flat, more stuck together sheet that looks like this. You're going to bend it up in a U, match these ends, and put it through there until it looks the way you want it to look. So that's demystified. Skinner blends, not hard. So what we ended up with is some Skinner blended material, pretty good sized piece. We're going to cut that in half, and we're going to make it into 2 pieces. And with one side, we're going to make a jelly roll. Probably made a lot of jelly roll canes. They're really fun to make. When you make a jelly roll cane with a Skinner blend, it adds a lot of mystery and interest to it, I think. So what we're going to do with it is we're going to roll it up into a jelly roll with the white in the middle. And the other one we're going to make into a fan fold with the white on one edge. And we'll do that now. I'm going to leave the white on the fan fold on the bottom edge because I'm kind of trying to create a ridge that we'll be using for interest in our cane. Okay? So now we already have a Skinner blended jelly roll. Normally you wouldn't need to trim it off this soon, but I'm going to do that now so we can see kind of what we've got here. Don't worry about that little teeny hole there. It's going to be compressed quite a bit, and that's fine for now. So we've got one of these, and the other one is going to be fan folded. And what it is you're starting with one end of your cane. And in this case, I know that I'm going to want to end up with a triangle. So I'm going to kind of fold it in a triangle to begin with. So as I go up and down here, I'm kind of narrowing it out just a little bit. This is going to take some shaping to get into the shape that we want it to be in. So right now I'm not worried about any kind of cracks. I'm not worried about conditioning it over again or anything else. All I'm worried about is fan folding it so that it's stacked up from light to dark. Okay? So with a fan fold, basically, I'll just do it again with an ordinary piece of clay. Basically with a fan fold, you're just making a bend in it this way, and then going this way, and going this way. So of course when you've got color in it, it's causing it to stack up in kind of a stripy look. And it's just a different use of your Skinner blend. It's really fun and adds a lot of interest to your cane. So we've got a little stack here. And you see I'm not getting really particular about anything yet because there's a lot of work to be done. So we've got a little stack here that's fan folded from light to dark, and we've got a jelly roll that's going from light to dark in a circle. So now we'll go to the next step. So you ended up with a jelly roll and a fan fold, okay? So I took my jelly roll and I formed it into a triangle. And I think you've probably done it before, but I'll mention it anyway, and that is you just take your round cane and you pinch up the sides, and you let the bottom flatten. Pinch up the sides, let the bottom flatten, until you have something that pretty closely resembles the shape you want to make it. You could make your jelly roll into a square, you can make it into a triangle, you could leave it round. We're building something with triangles today, so I figure we better make it into a triangle. So you have this one here, and what we're going to do with this one is make a striped border for it to give this effect here. So one easy way to make a striped border, one that I know that you can easily do, is to put your stripes on the sheet that you're going to wrap it with. That way you're not trying to balance them all on the edge of this and squeezing them too much and everything. So stripes are not difficult to make. So all they are is two colors together. And we want our stripe to go the length of this piece, approximately. Okay? So when you're making stripes, what you want to do is make your stack of your two colors. Today we're using black and white. And you want to take some fairly thin uniform slices of your stack. So they don't have to be perfect, but when they're a little bit thinner, they're certainly easier for you to manipulate and wrap around the cane than they would be if they're thick and not as flexible. So the thinness isn't really for cosmetic reasons, it's just to make life easier for you when you go to use it. Okie dokie, so you've built yourself a little gold slab of stripes. And the best way to make it stick together is roll over it a little bit. Since these three pieces that we're making are going to stick together like this, don't worry too much if it opens up maybe little tiny cracks as time goes by and you're putting it on to your cane. That stuff's not going to matter, so don't think that you did something wrong because you didn't. So I've got my little jelly roll that I've formed into a triangle. And I'm going to take my stripes and start them up here on the ridge, one of the ridges, whichever you choose, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to apply this gold sheet with the stripes upon it to my cane, okay? So now I've got this cool striped jelly roll cane with these little Tim Burton action around the edges here. My videographer tells me there's a new Beetlejuice coming out, so that's good news to me. I'm a Beetlejuice fan. So now you've got your little Beetlejuice cane here that you made. You can just cut off any excess. As I said, we don't obsess over exactly where each stripe is because by the time you've tortured it into these shapes, you're not going to be worried about anything like that, okay? So now I've got my jelly roll with some stripes around it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to this one. And you see in the end product of this cane how I've got a white to black Skinner blend. It's a fan folded piece. It's got some gold lines through it. And that just makes it look interesting and kind of mysterious. But it's not hard to do. So what I've done is I've applied just a gold sheet to one side of this cane. It'd be kind of interesting to see all the different variations there could be on that. I've chosen to leave the light at the bottom, the dark going up with a line here. See, it used to be that. So that's what you've made, and there's no mystique really here, because when you think about it, you're just going to cut it in half and do more of the same. So I'm going to take my cane and I'm going to measure it, because God knows I will never get it right if I don't. And I'm going to take it at about 2 inches, and I'm going to cut it in half, and I'm going to put it back together again. Now when I said this video is in real time, my version of real time is me showing you these steps and then going off camera and reducing them. I'll start reducing it a little bit so you can see the method, but don't think I'm cheating. It's just that, honestly, who wants to watch me reduce a cane? You know, it just sounds like some kind of torture, and I don't want to put you through it. But what I'm really doing is I'm making the peak now in this section. I didn't put these two gold together because I didn't want it to be too wide, so I just put the gold next to the place that didn't have any gold. So you went from this side to this piece. If you accidentally put those two golds together, big deal, it'd still be fine, but that's just something I like to do to keep control of the width of my little dividing lines. So I'm going to push this out of the way for a minute, because when you're reducing, make sure you have a nice firm surface. You need to get a little pressure on it, and I've cracked out a few of these that I use for, for travel and for videos. But in the real world, I've got a nice firm surface at home, which you're going to want to have too. And I'm going to push down on the sides of this. This is called forcing, and I guess that's what we're doing, aren't we? And we're going to force this into a new triangle. We're going to pinch it at the top, and we're bending it to our will here, and we're making it into this shape. So you see, during this process, you're really going to have a lot of different variations in size of what you end up with, because wow, that's getting really big now. But we're going to take it back down to probably twice its length and narrow it up a little bit to give it that feeling that we've got here of the lines kind of spreading out in a fan. So we're envisioning that as we go, seeing what shape we want it ultimately to be. So I'm going to take this out to about double its length, and then we're going to cut it again. Okay, so we've got our cane about twice the length that it was a couple minutes ago. And as I told you before, I won't torture you with every second of this. Be sure and email me if I am going too fast, or if there's something I'm really not showing you. Otherwise, we'll continue in this way. So I'm going to keep going with my stripes here that go down the center. So what I'm going to do is turn one of these over, and I will trim it off. See how the edges are always real wonky and crazy? That happens every single time, so you're not doing anything wrong. They just get a little bulge or a little dip in them. So now I've got another stripe to put in, and you can see where we're going with this. We're getting much more in the ballpark of this, because this has got these visible lines that are kind of make a fan starburst kind of motif. And that's what we've built by just making a triangle, right? Putting gold down the middle, reducing it, cutting it in half, reducing it again, putting it back together again. So, there's a few steps to that, but there's nothing really complicated about that. It's just taking the pieces you already made, making them smaller, and putting them back together. So now we have that nice, pleasing fan kind of shape with the gold lines. That's one part of this everybody always likes, and you can see it's easy to do. So I'll go ahead and trim up the other side of this, and we're going to set this one aside and talk a little bit about the other one, okay? In a minute, I'm going to reshape this back into its regular right triangle shape, and I'll do that off camera because I already showed you that's how you do it, by setting it down, pushing it, forcing it back up into a nice equilateral triangle, actually. So here's that one jelly roll we made, and we put our little stripes on it, okay? And all we're going to do with this is make sure that it's close to the same size as this one after it's reduced. So since you've already made this one, and you need to make it back into a equilateral triangle anyhow, we'll go ahead and do that and bring that back and match this side up with it, okay? So I've got this back into an equilateral triangle, and in checking it out, we've kind of lucked out with it because I have right about 1 1/4 inch, well, on all sides, I guess that would be equilateral, right? And the other one that we already made, off camera, I reduced it just slightly because it's right in the same ballpark too of being 1 1/4. So you see with this original cane that we're building a new triangle. And it's going to have the third cane we're going to build in a minute, and it's going to have these two. So if these two are the same size, and we're setting them up here, then what are we going to do? We're going to put something right in here. And that's what we're going to build now. And don't worry too much about your size and proportion because you can keep adjusting these to fit each other. If you wanted to take, some kind of complicated math course, you could probably figure out how to exactly make all the right sizes that are going to fit great every time. But we've got our little hands and we've got our little ruler. So don't worry too much about that. We can make everything fit together as we go, and it's really going pretty simply and pretty easily for us today, and it will for you too. So here you have your first two. We're going to set them aside, and we're going to make the last one. Now the last one is a checkerboard. It's this one here. So we're going to make a checkerboard, and all you have to do is cut some more strips, just like when you made your little stripes, and you lay them out. And all a checkerboard for this project has to be is a square. So if you're going to make a square, you want the same amount of strips going up as going side to side. So I've got, let's see, what have I got? 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 double strips, or 8 lines. I'm going to go up and build my checkerboard by reversing the colors and putting them in a little pile here. You try to cut them as uniformly as you can, but you guys, I've seen people just agonize and measure. There's a lot of expensive cutting machines, and there's this whole thing built up about having all your cuts be just exactly perfect, and that's just such a bunch of doo-doo, because honestly, you don't need to have everything be just exactly measured down to the letter. By the time you take these things and you reduce them down to these kind of sizes, I really would defy anyone to find a tiny little improper piece, okay? So the reason I pass this on to you is because I was kind of one of those people myself. I was always obsessing about everything being just exactly the same thickness and the same size. And yeah, I like them to turn out beautiful, and I care about them, but I don't care about them enough to not have any fun. So that's my suggestion to you, is put your stuff together, have fun with it. You see it's going to be fine, and you can trust old Pandora, it will be fine. So we're on our last level here. I've got 3 levels of the black and white stripes. Since they're 4 wide, we're making them 4 high, which will create a kind of a nice little square for us. And squares are kind of easier to reduce than rectangles, and they kind of lend themselves to this project. But you could really make your checkerboard in any shape you want. We'll talk about that in another time, okay? So now you've built yourself this adorable little checkerboard. And I'm going to take it and roll over it a little bit to kind of knit it together so that we can just trash it in a minute, do all kinds of neat stuff to it. But right now I'm interested in having my checkerboard stick together and having the white and the black line up fairly well enough to indicate what we're trying to say. And you see, that was done in real time, and I did not go crazy lining it up, and it looks fine. It's a checkerboard. So that's what I want for you guys. Now this is the really fun part, and this is kind of my technique that I don't know if anybody else does, but if you've been watching my videos, you see I like to morph things and dent things up and change them around a little bit. So in this project, I'm pinching it into more of a square so that I can show you more easily what to do with it. That's fine, that looks good. I'm going to take one of my little rod things, and we've discussed these before, but I'm going to take one of these, and you can use a pen if you're at home, anything that you find that's right about the right size. And I'm going to create a little dent in each side of this cane. Because I kind of like this harlequin look. I kind of like this kind of diamond shape, and that's the way I'm going to get it the easy way than having to cut this cane or having to reshape it for hours. I'm just going to create some dents where I want them to be. So where I want them to be is on each side. Is each stripe exactly lined up? I don't know. But that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to create some dents. And after I make the dents the way I want them, they don't have to be too deep. You'll see what you're doing, see? Then I'm going to insert some gold into the indentations to start making the shape that I'm trying to get, okay? So here's my little dents, and I'm going to pinch these to make them kind of pointy, because as I say, I want kind of a diamond look in here. I'm going to make them a little bit more pointy so I can just see right where my rods are going to fit. And what I've done with this is I've taken the pieces of gold that I made beforehand, and I've just rolled them up into some little log type material. And I'm going to fit them into these ridges that I just made. So ideally your little log or your little snake is going to be right about the size of your rod, approximately. That could be probably could be a little bit thinner. So I could just stretch it out. So now it's thinner. And I've got enough to make 4, which is how many dents that I made. So I'm going to take my little snakes, and I'm going to put them in those little dents that I made with my tool, okay? And you know, lucky for me, I got more of this right over here. So I'll make one more little snake. Pay super close attention to what you're doing. You won't run out of material, but my method for not running out of material is to always make a lot. There's nothing like worrying about running out. I don't know about you, but that just totally ruins it for me. So I've always got a little bit on the side to work with. So I'm going to take my snaky, I'm going to mash it down into that groove on each side. You can see there's a lot of latitude for all kinds of excitement here. Like, what if this little snake was a Skinner blend snake? What if it was wrapped? Let's say I had wrapped it in some red or some silver or something. I'd have a whole different look, wouldn't I, to my cane here. So you want to be thinking about that, because the most fun about caning is making it be what you want it to be. And that's why I'm so much more about teaching than I am about selling. I have a few things online to sell because people have asked me to, but honestly the fun is in sharing it and making cane with other people and claying with other people. So I want you to make it the way you want to. That's my whole point, okay? So now I've got this interesting thing. I just really like this, and it's one of these shapes. That's it reduced, of course. That's it about midway where we're going. So now you got one of these things, and I think I'm going to wrap it with another sheet of gold, because I think I could have used a little bit more gold accent in that last cane than I had. So I'll probably do that, and I'll show you how they're going to look all put together. Okay, so you've got this little diamond-shaped checkerboard type thing that we put together, and I'm going to put a gold wrap on it, and that's just because you've got various sides that maybe quite squeeze and bleed through during the reduction process. So I'm going to put this wrap on it, and also I think it can use a little bit more gold in the design, or whatever your accent color is. I think it's kind of pretty. So I'm going to put a wrap around it before I insert it into the mix here, okay? So I've got a gold wrap on my diamond-shaped cane, and I'm going to take 2 sides of it and kind of crisp them up, pinch them together, make them a little more pointy, because I want them to fit down in these other 2 pieces. So as you've gone along, I think one of the hardest things for me to learn has been proportions, you know, which goes with which and how does it fit and that stuff. So as you've gone along, just remember that you're shaping your pieces to fit each other. It's not that you're failing if they don't fit. Shaping them to fit together is a big part of it for you. So don't worry too much if they don't seem like they fit. They're clay, they're made to be shaped, and you're going to make them fit. So I've got these two pieces that we made before, and I'm going to stick them right up against each other, like this. I'm going to leave this one gold wrap on the outside there, that one gold stripe that we were left with, because I've got plenty of gold here, so it probably would do us more good in our design to have it be on the outside. And now I'm going to take my diamond and I'm going to stick it down in here, okay? So it's really neat looking. I really like it. And you can see where we're going with this, because what we were trying to build is something that looks like this, which it pretty much does. Whoops, maybe like that. Okay, so you fit it down in there, and we've pressed it together. I cut the ends off of it, and it shows you what you've got to work with. So you can see different sizes of this and the different things that we've made. This was cut and recombined a few times, and I'll show you some of that. This is the part that's really where your imagination comes in, because you can match these up so many different ways and make so many different things. But we're going to start just for demonstration purposes, by cutting off a couple of slices of this cane. So here's a couple here. We'll do 4. Okay. If I put all of the diamonds in the center and match up the sides, I get one look. Okay? Okay? If I were to put different sides together, I get a completely different look. So in the bracelet that I'm wearing now, I've made different tiles out of different kind of combinations so that the bracelet will have variation in it. Okay? If I were to make the whole cane that way, I could do that. What I did when I made mine was I made it into one piece and then reshaped it into a square. That's just, that's endless hours of fun to do. If I wanted to take my patterns and match them up a different way, I could make it look completely different. And that's where this type of caning really shines, because if you had, say, a bracelet that had all these different pieces, each of the tiles a different configuration, that's amazing what you could do that way. So now we've seen it with the fans in the middle, and we've seen it with the checkerboards in the middle, and now we can see it with the jelly rolls in the middle. So that makes a completely different look again. I'm just running through this quickly because sitting here with your cane that you've worked very hard on and playing with it is really your reward. It doesn't have too much to do with me because you worked hard to make this cane and I want you to have fun with it. Obviously you put some more slices in. But you can see how different each thing looks. So what I do with it is I go ahead and reduce this cane after I've made it to probably about 4 times its length. I mean, you look at the scale here, that's quite a bit smaller. And in this bracelet, the stretchy one that I did, I made a lot of different kind of tiles in the different configurations, just simply because I could. Okay? Been fiddling with this a lot. I think that's why this knot flew out of here. These knots will slip right in between and be hidden in real life here. But you can see what I'm talking about. So you've really just taken how many elements? You've taken a jelly roll, you've taken a fan fold, and that's the same sheet of material. You've taken some stripes and some checkerboard. So you've made 2 things. You've made one Skinner blend and one stripe stack, and that's made all this really. Just the way you put it together makes it look different. So you've taken your stripe stack, you've taken your Skinner blend, created 3 components, made those components into this triangle, which now the sky's the limit. If you wanted to make this and take it much taller, you could probably put 8 pieces together if it were in a taller triangle. Many times I've changed the shape so that it was only 4 pieces together. That's up to you, and that's really the fun of it, and I won't intrude upon that. But I hope that you've seen that a complex cane does not have to be complicated. And as this is reduced and made smaller and smaller, it's just more and more mysterious, and that's where the mystique comes from, because as each of these elements gets tiny and tinier and tinier and is cut and recombined, it just gets more and more complex. So there you are, the uncomplicated complex cane. Well, what do you think about your cane? I can imagine how pretty it is. I've worked with a lot of people making complex canes for the first time, and really there's something so magical about it when you see what you can do. I would love to see what you've made. Please remember that I'm always anxious to get pictures. You can email those to busypandora@gmail.com. I will always respond. I will always be interested in what you're making, because that's all the fun of it for me, is sharing it with you. So our next video is going to be putting these canes to use in the form of bangles, in the form of a tiled bracelet that's got elastic, and you'll probably have enough left over, I imagine, to do this little pendant, which is very simple, very fun. So I'm looking forward to this next one. If you have any questions or comments, you know how to reach me. There's many different ways, and I believe that they're listed right under this video on your screen. So thank you so much for coming. I really have enjoyed being with you today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.